Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to the award-winning Paul Brown Show. This evening, my guest will be Miss
Tayuanee.
Tayuanee Dewberry. She's the executive director of the Right Moves for Youth. How you doing there, Miss Dewberry?
I'm doing wonderful.
Thank you for coming on the show. Tell us a little bit about yourself first.
Well, I am the executive director at Right Moves for Youth. I've been with the agency about 7.5 years. I started out as the program director and assumed the position of executive director about 4 years ago, and I've been doing that ever since. I enjoy what I do because it gives me an opportunity to impact the lives of youth who are much like myself when I was in high school and in middle school. And just needed a little support and guidance, and so this gives me an opportunity to give back.
Right Moves for Youth. Tell us a little bit about that program, because I know it's a well-known program within our community.
Right Moves for Youth is a youth development agency. Our program is geared toward decreasing the dropout rate in Charlotte-Mecklenburg. As you may know, the graduation rate is a big issue in our community right now, and people are really focused on it. But Right Moves for Youth has been doing this about 20 years. We work with students at 34 schools in the Charlotte-Mecklenburg school system, and we really try to get in and impact these kids, improving their self-efficacy, working with them on life skills. We work with them to make sure that they feel comfortable in the school setting and that they have adequate support both from peers and adults. We continue to work with our partners who are the Sheriff's Department, Police Department, and Charlotte-Mecklenburg schools. And I think we are just a value-added service in this community.
So there is a need for your program within these. I know you say you deal with a lot of the youth and stuff like that. Why is there such an issue with our youth in our community?
I think part of the issue is that we have gotten away from the people aspect of things. We have gone to teaching to the test. We have gone to really kind of moving, what I call moving freight. We're just shuffling the kids through, and we're not making the effort to connect with them in ways that we did in the past. And Right Moves for Youth really tries to address that in the fact that we work with kids to provide them with the guidance and the resources and the opportunities to be successful in school and to create a plan for their future achievement. So in doing that, we really work with them on a basis where we are connecting with them as individuals. We work in a group setting, but we really see them and give them an opportunity to really define who they are, define what success means to them, and to plan for their future accordingly.
Okay, why is there such a big difference between the graduation rate of some high school in the Charlotte community and of others?
Well, when you look at the graduation rate in these high schools, again, the overall graduation rate for CMS, you're looking at about 74%. When you look at a place like Providence, you're looking at around 97%.
And why is there such a big difference?
Well, when you look at a place like West Charlotte or even some of the other schools in that area, you're looking at just over 50%. I think it's egregious when on one side of town there is such achievement, and then on the other side you can walk down the hall and for every other student you can just about say this student will not make it out of here. I think that we aren't allocating enough resources. I don't think that we are addressing these schools in a culturally competent manner such that these kids have a chance to make it out in the same way that some of the more affluent kids do. I think, again, we're looking at issues of poverty, which certainly affect parent involvement, because if I'm in a position where I'm struggling and I'm trying to survive, sometimes the schools don't make it very easy for me to engage in ways that stay-at-home Susie could engage. I think there are a lot of issues around that, but I think it gets down to not even so much race, though, because wealth is distributed in the way that it is, it becomes race, but it really gets down to who has the resources to make sure that their kids get the best.
So how do you deal with that youth who's dealing with issues at home in coming to school and can't focus, or are the families not supporting the kids, into graduating from school?
Well, it's not that the parents aren't and the families aren't supporting these students. They're supporting them a lot of times in the best ways they know how. And I'm not saying that every kid gets adequate support, but I certainly don't want to say that parents and families aren't supporting these kids. But I think it's important that when they bring these issues into the classroom, and I happen to be a licensed therapist as well, I feel like we bring all of who we are and all of what we deal with into work or into school and everything that we do. And so when you have kids who are bringing adult problems and issues of survival into the classroom, sometimes math or English doesn't seem that important because it's so far away. Going to college or whatever it is so far away. And really what we try to do at Right Moves for Youth is help them to process what they're bringing into the school system, into the classroom, give them a safe place to talk about what's happening with them, and really help increase their coping skills and give them new skills to be able to achieve and succeed in the way that others will. And so if we're giving them that space when we're meeting with them and they're not processing that stuff in the classroom.
Correct. Okay, as far as, do the kids, are they able to communicate, and tell you exactly what's going on in their life and how this is affecting their attitudes in schools, and how do you deal with that?
Absolutely. Because Right Moves for Youth, it is a consistent group of kids that we work with at each school on a weekly basis. It becomes like family to them. It becomes a safe haven. And you would be surprised at some of the conversations that we have about what they're dealing with and how they feel about it. And I think, again, back to the question that you asked previously, I don't think that we are engaging students as individuals in the ways that we used to. And so giving these kids the opportunity to speak about this is such a powerful thing.
Okay, I know you provide, what are some of the things that you do in your program?
We work on life skills is a big part of what we do. And with life skills, we try to give them, again, coping mechanisms, which is tools in the toolbox. Because when you're a kid who's your culture is to speak in a certain way and you're encountering teachers or administrators who don't necessarily understand your lingo, working with them on how do you communicate with diverse groups is important. Conflict resolution, goal setting, all of those things that really help them to be able to successfully navigate that school environment for a successful future.
And that the real thing that makes people operate or move is having an economic opportunity. There's no way that you can sustain yourself by having clothes on your back, shoes on your feet, a roof over your head, unless you have some type of opportunity that allows you to be able to be a part of the workforce or even to own your own business. And therefore, it's important from my perspective to making sure that in as much as I have the ability to create an opportunity for someone, that I do just that.
That's great. Is it fair to say that whether it's in the public or private sector, that all people should have the equal opportunity one at one thing that makes them whole, and that's economic opportunities where a business can thrive? What do you feel about that?
Certainly, we all have preferred people that we want to probably hang out with.
Correct.
The same thing can be true in business. Some area businesses or companies have preferred lists where they want to engage with certain folks. And not all the time do people across the board get that opportunity. And so when you start talking about making sure that there's what I would call balance
Yes, sir.
being in place, that's the one thing that we have to continue to have. And so um, people across the board, particularly women and minorities, need to be included in that such that we create the type of city, the type of county, the type of state, and even the type of country that embraces men and women business development entrepreneurs so that we can certainly make sure that each one of us has an opportunity to be able to be a successful either business owner or an employee in the workplace.
What's the minority and women's business development program that
Yep.
they have in Charlotte?
Well, yeah, and you heard me just a moment ago mention
Correct. Yes, sir.
women and
What is it?
minorities. The city of Charlotte used to have a program called the MWBE program.
Okay.
The Women and Minority Business Program was a program basically that concentrated on gender as well as race because the idea was it was needed largely in part because those segments of our population happen to be overlooked. And so, in order to try to make sure that there was some level of inclusion, the MWBE program came about.
How is this program different from the small business entrepreneur program that we have in the city?
Okay, the SBE, or sometimes people call it the SBO program,
Yes,
Small
sir.
Business Opportunity Program, is different in that, again, the MWBE program was a program that was geared toward, it was gender and or race specific. The SBO program is not that. It's a program that allows pretty much any and everybody to compete on the same level playing field. Some people will say, well, if you do that, you'd run the risk of excluding those persons that would have been either a woman or a
Correct.
minority. And so, that being the case, um, that's pretty much the difference between the two. One is the SBO is gender and or race neutral, while the MWBE program is not.
Why was the MWBE program disbanded? It was such
Mm.
a good program.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I'm in something called politics.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And in as much as some people would have said that they had a concern rather that you had women-owned businesses that were fronts. In other words, they were pass-through companies where they were suggesting that the wife was actually in the ownership bracket
Oh, okay.
of being a part of the company, but yet she really didn't run it. The husband probably ran it, or the son probably ran it, or the nephew probably ran it, and therefore it was argued that it wasn't a legitimate company. That was one argument. Another thing that was out there, but really no one talked about, was the undercurrent of the idea that really no one wanted to have a program that dealt with women and minorities. An entity called the Southeastern Legal Foundation uh, typically goes around the country, and all it does is dismantle programs like MWBE programs for women and minorities. They do it everywhere. Charlotte happened to be on their stop, happened to be on their list. And when they came, of course, they raised concern and they filed a lawsuit. And as a result, the city council, we ended up having to take it up over into the wee hours of the morning, about 1, maybe 1:30 in the morning, where a decision was made to go ahead and nix the program. It happened by way of a vote that was probably, I want to say, 7-3. Yes. And so as a result, the program went away, and um, we now don't have that program in existence anymore.
Charlotte, North Carolina. What was the deciding factor in you running for the mayor position?
Well, Paul, I grew up in Charlotte, and my husband and I are raising our children here in Charlotte, and we love the city. We want to see it realize its greatest potential. And, about a year ago, when the need arose for an interim mayor, I heard from a lot of people in the community. I got phone calls, I got emails. People reached out to me and said, will you please consider running for this office? And I think that people were searching for transparency. They were searching for a community spirit, for someone who could collaborate, bring people together, focusing on teamwork and transparency. And when I looked at the community and all our potential, and I thought about the skill set that I could bring to the mayor's office, and I talked to a lot of people and my family, of course, I decided that this is a critical time for our city, and I really believe I could move the city forward.
How does your background as a former member of Mecklenburg County Commissioners, Board of County Commissioners, increase your expertise in the city?
Well, you know, I had the honor of serving the county
Correct.
for 8 years, and 5 of those I was the chairperson. And what that meant is that I was the spokesperson for not just Charlotte, but for all of Mecklenburg County, which includes 6 towns and the city of Charlotte. And I represented this county on a state and national level, serving on state and national boards. So I have had the opportunity to promote this region, our county and our city,
Yes, ma'am.
before. I also have the perspective from a county commission standpoint of the connection between human services and infrastructure. And people always get confused about which things the city does and which things the county does. And the easy way to remember it is that the county is the people part of government and the city works on our infrastructure. Those two things are intertwined. And so you can't talk about a healthy community without talking about the physical community, sidewalks and greenways and things that people can use to stay healthy. Those are things that we construct. Those are infrastructure, but it has an impact on human services. And there's so many cases where I see that. And as a county commissioner, what you see is the connection between these things. You can't talk about thriving neighborhoods without talking about good schools in those neighborhoods. You can't talk about bringing jobs without also talking about a healthy place to live and a place where people want to live because of the assets that we have. And so every time that we look at a city service, we should also be mindful of the human services from the county side that are impacted. What I'd like to see is even better collaboration with the city and the county. And I think that having been a county commissioner, that gives me a unique perspective and opportunity to say, when we're looking at the city, let's make sure the county is included as well. Now, they're doing that pretty well right now, but everything can be better, and that perspective would help make that an even tighter relationship.
I know as a member of